Hello and welcome to the Hypnosis Academy. Please help this channel by liking this video and subscribing if you're not subscribed, okay? So, today I'm talking about waiting to be good enough. And I'll tell you all about it on the other side. So I know that many of you have done studies in helping other people. Yeah, I know that you've got skills, and you've done, whether you've done one of the courses that I offer or other courses. Yeah, and I know that probably some of you are a little bit reluctant to kind of jump into this, and I remember that I was too. And I know the reason that I was reluctant to get into doing therapy was because, first of all, I wasn't sure whether I understood everything properly. I wasn't sure that I had enough skills to be able to deal with what might come my way. I wasn't sure that I would know what the client needed. And so what I would do is I would study more and more. I would study furiously all of the time. But I was always reluctant to do it, because I thought, well, maybe I don't know enough. Maybe I don't know enough yet. And I remember watching a guy, he was kind of like a statistician or something like that, and he was talking about the fallacy of knowing enough. And he was talking about knowing something. And what he was showing was that, like, mathematically, how it's impossible for us ever to know everything that we need to know. It's mathematically impossible. We can never know everything that we need to know. Why? Because we don't have the sources, we don't have the connections, we don't have that network, we don't have the capacity to take in every bit of information on that particular subject. It's impossible. The best that we can do is to have our take on it. That's probably the best way of looking at it. To have your take on that. And that's why it's so interesting to hear other people speak about the same thing. Because often you think, wow, well, that's certainly not what I thought. Yeah. And even if it's exactly the same thing, something you've worked with for years. I know that every time that I watch a therapist, I hear them do something that I haven't done. Yeah. Oh, wow. I didn't know you could do that. Okay. So one of the issues that we have is that we're waiting to be good enough to start when in fact there is no good enough. We'll never be good enough as in our aspiration of what good enough is, which is knowing everything. Yeah. The only way that we can get good enough to be able to do a good job is by doing it. There is no shortcut. You can't study your way to being a good therapist. In my opinion, maybe some people have, but I don't believe so. You can only become a good therapist by doing therapy as much as you possibly can. The more you do it, and the more stumbling blocks you have, and the more times it doesn't work. Understand, when therapy doesn't work, it's a gift. You are being given a gift. If therapy worked every time, you would lose out. It would be a waste. Because what would you learn? Nothing. Well, this works. This works. Until it doesn't. And then when it doesn't, you're like, what do I do? No. Somebody the other day was talking to me and they said, well, I got back into it, and I've had a bad run of doing therapy and it just hasn't worked. Wonderful. It's wonderful that it hasn't worked, because that teaches you. It teaches you, this isn't working. What the hell am I going to do now? And how am I going to maintain my poker face, so that they don't know that I'm shitting myself? Yeah, that's what we learn. That's what we learn through adversity. Yeah, that's what we learn when something isn't working. And it's a beautiful place to be. but it's very scary. And so I used to run away from that. I was thinking, no, and especially if you've only got one tool, then there's a big problem happening. Because when that one tool doesn't work, what are you going to do? Hence the fact that the expression is, a good therapist never finishes a technique. All right? And all that means is that if it's not going the way that it should, you gently, it's like merging into another road, into another lane, and you change and you do something else. Yeah? There's an expression, if it isn't working, do anything else. You see, what I find with therapy is that you're doing something, it's not working, okay? But the person wants it to work and you want it to work. And so sometimes just by changing a little bit, suddenly it works. It's like the person might have a block there, or there's just something that's stopping them, and then you shift to go, oh yeah, I can do this one, you know? That's why, for example, having in your pocket EFT or Havening, and I know I've given them other names, so I can't remember now, but they're always, if you're in doubt, like, oh, this isn't working, okay, so I just want you to come back. Now, tell me what you're feeling. Tell me what you're feeling. Are you feeling that? Okay, so I want you just to do this with me, okay? Help them to get rid of the feeling, because they're going to be feeling bad about it as well if it's not working, all right? So the idea is that you do not need to be an expert on everything to be able to help people. All you need to do is to have a few tools, good tools that have been recommended to you, tools that you know work. Don't pick tools that you don't know if they work, right? That's silly. Pick tools that have got a track record, that people say, hey, I use these all of the time and these work. Do that, all right? And then with your tools, off you go and just use them and use them and use them and use them and use them until you get to the place where you think, yeah, I know what happens now. I know what normally happens, and when something happens outside of this, then I can shift to something else. Yeah? So, don't be scared. The worst that can happen is that the person leaves you feeling about the same. That's about the worst. If you're using good techniques that have been proven, that have a proven track record, you're not going to leave somebody in a worse place. You shouldn't anyway. Yeah? And even if you do, right? Because I've had people that have called me afterwards and said, hey, is it okay for me to feel worse? And I say, of course it is. That's always your answer, by the way. Of course it is. What we've done is we've stirred the pot, and this is very true, right? People have suppressed stuff for years, and then you start opening it up and you stir it and everything gets stirred up. Of course, some people are going to start thinking about what you've dealt with and maybe not feeling so good. It's okay. They need another session, obviously. So you really can't do any harm. Even if somebody's feeling worse, you've moved something, shifted, something has changed. We are agents of change. That's our role. Agents of change. We help to facilitate change. What you want, and that's why I say to my clients, get in touch in a couple of 3 days and tell me what's different. Why? Because we're agents of change. We want to know what's different, not what's the same. I'm not interested. What's different? Because, I would expect a lot of things to be the same, but I would also expect things to be different. And I want to know about that. That tells you what you've done. Okay. All right. So be brave. Go ahead. Launch yourself into this. There are tons of people that need help. Tons. Okay. And I'm here as well. If you ever need any advice or just have a question, I'm here to help. All right. I love you all. Take care.